Allô? Siacast. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you.
Firstly, could you tell us which part of UK you're from?
I'm from near Liverpool, which
You're
is
from Liverpool?
yeah, which is known for two things:
Yeah.
for the Beatles and for a fantastic football club, which I'm very proud to support.
Yes. I mean, you had a game yesterday.
Don't tell us we
Okay,
lost.
I'm not going to say anything. Okay.
Damn. Should I walk off?
No, don't do it. What we're going to talk about is something completely different from Beatles and Liverpool Football Club. But firstly, could you tell us a bit more about yourself? Because you've had quite of a journey, actually.
Yeah. So I mean, with most, I could bore you with my whole backstory, but most important here. So I was the British Consul General for a couple of years back in 2010, 2012, and I guess without being too corny, I sort of fell in love with the place.
Yeah.
Because people are so welcoming, and there's so much change going on in society. There's so much movement, and there's always something interesting happening. Always, sometimes not very good things.
Yeah.
This is Iraq, after all. But I just found it continually interesting. I was never bored here, and that's a great thing. And then I worked for an oil and gas company for about 10 years.
Okay.
And then, but most relevant here, during lockdown, I started doing I did a master's at King's and started thinking about mental health.
Okay.
And realized very quickly that there's very little mental health provision in this part of the world. And it's a part of the world, like everywhere, that needs that support. Mm-hmm. So we thought, what can we do about it?
Yeah, okay. So, how did you fill that gap? You saw,
Well, we haven't quite filled it. We've started to fill it because it's a very big, it's a very good gap. But we're starting from the ground up, and we gathered.
Being who?
We. Very good question.
Yeah.
We is a group of Anglo-Kurdish mental health professionals, of whom I'm the least qualified.
Okay.
So we have two doctors of clinical psychology. We have a consultant neurologist, a Belgian friend of mine who was roped in because I knew him. And we sat together and we thought, how can we make a difference? What can we do? And we thought, look, the best way is to start by doing some training of people. Kurds here who will be able to then deliver mental health services for other Kurds within Kurdistan.
Wonderful.
So our great luck was that we managed to convince the Oxford Cognitive Therapy Centre. So this sits in between the university and the Oxford NHS to train 30 Kurds a year to be able to deliver cognitive behavior therapy. We have a fantastic local partner called ETTC who do a fantastic support job for the training. And most important, we found 30 brilliant Kurds. So one of the things I'm doing here is interviewing them, finding out about them, learning their story, and seeing how we can make the program even better for next year.
And what type of background do these 30 people have?
Yeah, so what we asked for was, we said, look, there has to be excellent English.
Yeah, okay.
Because the training is from Oxford,
Exactly,
so you have to be able to keep up. A background in psychology, and then some access to clients.
Okay.
Right? So we're starting from ground up.
Right.
Because when you do therapy, and I'm also practicing as a therapist as well,
Okay.
out of Oxford, you can learn about the theory, and that's important.
Yeah.
But then when you sit in front of somebody for the first time and say,
How's it
this is
going?
confidential,
Yes.
this is non-judgmental,
Yeah.
what do I need to know in order to try to help you? And then to listen is a big moment. And there are techniques and there are ways of doing that require skill. And so far, the 30 Kurds that we have, according to Oxford, not even just according to me, are doing really well. And we're really proud of them.
And how long does that training
It takes a year.
It takes a year.
In teaching blocks, 5 teaching blocks of 4 years. And it's not just 1 year.
Yeah.
So we have money for 2 years, and we hope to do it for 5 years,
Oh, wow.
and then pass it on to a Kurdish organization. Because in the end, it has to be Kurds doing it for themselves. And we need more.
Yeah.
Because if you have only one psychotherapist for 10,000 people, which isn't very many, then you need 500 trained psychotherapists. We're doing 30, so there's a lot of work.
Yes.
There's a lot of work to.
Yes, yeah.
But we want to have solid foundations. And right now, we've got the best. We've got Oxford involved.
Yes, yeah.
So it's
You're very sorted. Yeah.
and we've had great support from the government,
That's good.
and I think I can say that there's nobody that I've spoken to who said, we don't need that.
That's rare.
In fact, one, I won't name him, but one prominent government official said, great, can I be your first candidate?
Wow.
Your first client. So we've spoken to people and they all say, look,
Fantastic.
this is something that's needed. I don't need to tell you about the difficulties that Kurdistan's been through. But also it's the societal changes, right?
Yeah.
It's, how do you merge the traditional with the modern? How do you deal with gender issues, children, let alone trauma, addiction, right? So there's plenty of work. And it's not just Kurdistan, my country, England, as well. Of course, we have a lot of those issues
Yeah.
as well.
But the practices that you use is applicable really most places on this earth. Would you when I was like watching movies and reading books or works from like say the 60s and 70s, I often like related to them because I felt like the generation that experienced the Second World War,
Right.
and the generation that came after it had this sort of gap that is sort of created now between, I would say, my generation, younger generation, and our parents who actually had to flee a lot,
Yes.
or it was like raining bombs, so to speak.
I think that's absolutely true. I mean, even just from Liverpool, my father grew up in Liverpool when it was being bombed during the Second World War.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Age 6, he lost his mother. Age 7, he was evacuated from Liverpool and then came back.
Yeah.
But you know what's also really important? And I think you get this from Kurdistan. It's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to it.
Yeah, that's nice.
Right?
Yeah.
And some people need a bit of help in coming to terms with that.
Yeah.
And that's what we're here for. Some people, of course, can do that themselves. But occasionally, some of us, myself included occasionally, need a bit of help in coming to terms with things. And it's about how you think about what happened to you.
Yeah. Because that help that you're talking about is sort of maybe retraining your brain, but also your body, like you said.
Yeah. So one of the things that I deal with quite a lot is anxiety.
Yeah.
So we deal with anxiety mostly and depression. So anxiety is about a future threat.
Or what you think is a future threat.
Right, yeah. But also, so in the past, we're an ancient species, right? So we have an evolutionary part with the back part of our brain, which is very good at detecting a threat. If you're walking, tens of thousands of years ago, if you're walking through a forest and you hear a noise, you startle. Okay? You're ready to either fight or to run away.
Yeah.
And that's really important for evolution, right?
Yeah.
But what does that? It's chemicals that are pushed through your body. Now, in today's world, we're not worried about tigers, lions, well maybe a little bit, but not usually, right? What we're threatened about is thoughts that we think are threatening to ourselves. And so often people who will have anxiety will feel it in their body somewhere. Their throat, perhaps, or their chest, or their stomach, or they may tremble. And that's an indicator that you have anxiety, or you're having an anxious thought.
And sometimes people have lived with it for so long they don't even notice it. I have this friend who started to like relax a bit more, and then because her muscles weren't holding her, I don't know how to explain it, but what happened was like she started getting acid reflexes,
Right.
because there was no muscles keeping it down,
Right.
as she was relaxing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so somebody will think, right, a typical thought will be, my boss is unhappy with me.
Yeah.
Okay, they'll look at their boss and they think, my boss isn't happy, which is fine. That's normal, right? But then the thought will be, my boss will sack me. Then I'll lose my job. I will never get another job. I will be homeless. My spouse will leave me. I will be seen as being a terrible person. Right?
Seen as a failure.
Seen as a failure, right? Now, all of that is irrational, right? Because rationally, you would say, okay, so that's the threat. It's a threat in the mind, right? So one of the things we do is to say to people, look, it's just anxiety. It's uncomfortable, right? But let's break down those thoughts. Is your boss going to sack you? Well, if they do, well, what's going to happen? Well, I'll look for another job, right?
Yeah.
But so that person at that moment is thinking about that horrible outcome, which is really awful, but it's not realistic. Mostly. Right? And so it's about anxieties around future threats.
Yeah.
Whereas depression is about looking back and thinking that everything's a failure.
Yeah.
I failed my exam. Therefore, I am a failure. And I will always be a failure.
Yeah.
And that's really sad for people when they think that. And then, why would you try? Right? Why would you even try? Because no point. So you tend to find people with depression who've sunk in on themselves.
Yeah.
Because of a
Mental
of
block.
a thinking pattern.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So if you tweak people and say, okay, why don't you?
Yeah, there you go.
It's usually just a little tweak that says, okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes, of course, they work together. Because if somebody's anxious, they might think there's lots of threats outside. So do they go out? Do they see their friends? Do they exercise?
Shower.
Do they eat well? Do they look after themselves? Maybe not. And then that starts to look like depression.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah. And there's another one, you talked about that you see a societal change.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, look, I'm an old person. I think young people get it better. I think they are, particularly in Kurdistan, they're more in tune to some of this thinking. They've seen some of the challenges that they're facing. Of course, aware of their own history and the Kurdish people's suffering, but aware of their own challenges a little bit more and ready to talk about some of these issues, because that's the first step, right? Thinking it's okay to not be okay. It's getting comfortable with feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's
Right?
true. Yeah.
And so society needs a bit of time to get used to those ideas. Look, it can still be difficult for people to say, I'm feeling depressed.
Yeah.
I need to speak to somebody. So that first step and worrying about what other people think about you can be difficult.
Yeah.
But that's the path to recovery.
And it's also maybe like there's a sense of shame of
Right.
feeling upset because we go like, okay, but our parents and grandparents survived so much of like violence and pain, and then I can't even deal with this modern world. But then actually maybe they haven't
It's
survived
everybody's
it in a way.
own story
Yeah.
that matters.
Yeah.
It's their own narrative, their own experience,
Yeah.
their own thinking that matters, right? And we sometimes say to people, okay, what is it that you can control? What is it that you have influence over?
Ah.
And what is it that you have no control over? And do you have control over history? No. You sort of have control over your own thinking and your own approaches to things. And that's what's important. So there's no point feeling guilt or shame because it's your own story that matters. You're unique. Everyone's unique, right? And it's important to understand that you're responsible for you. I tell you, I know in English people often say, "She made me so sad,"
Yeah.
and you think, "Hang on a minute. She didn't. She might have done something. You choose how to respond."
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You made me so happy. Well, you might have done something, but you choose how to respond.
Yeah.
And why? Because that's about you. Let's say there is an older person who's been through the Anfal, who survived. Do they want their children to feel depressed or anxious because they went through that? I would say no, right? They want healthy, functioning, confident children, grandchildren, right? What did they suffer for? That's what they suffered for.
Yeah.
It's so the children could be happy,
Yeah, that's true.
not persecuted,
Yeah.
at ease with themselves, proud to be a Kurd. That's what they fought and died for.
So how can someone come and in touch with you guys?
Well, so this.
So firstly, to receive help, and secondly, to get the training.
So the training, get in contact with ETTC,
Yeah.
the European Technology and Training Center. We have a wonderful guy there, Jihad Zero, and Fuad, who works with him, and Karok. They're great people. We hope to do another year of training.
Yeah.
In terms of how you get access, this is one of my dilemmas, actually, because I don't want to help create too much of a demand before we have the supply in place.
Yeah. Okay.
But what's important is that people think about it, and they think about what these things are, and firstly, even that there's no stigma, right?
Yeah.
And some of it is, look, a very quick thing around anxiety is to say, okay, detect it. I'm feeling something physical. Why is that? Now, some people then sort of start doing something else. They distract themselves. No. Sit with the thought. Feel that discomfort.
Oh, yeah.
Don't run away from it.
Yeah.
Because avoiding things never works. and then think, what is that thought? Where is that thought taking me? Really? Why would I think that? Because our bodies are very good at getting us up into that nervous situation. They're also, if left to their devices, very good at bringing us down again. If we let them. If we let them. And that's to do with thinking.
Is it possible for us to detect, like from the outside, who has depression or anxiety, or is it difficult?
Well, look, some people are very good at covering it up. Some people are, so you may see some behavior of somebody who's anxious and think, okay, what is it? Particularly, people who are anxious tend to avoid things that they would consider threatening. So that's also a key. I would say if one of your friends has changed their behavior a little bit in terms of they're not coming out, they're not engaging, they are sleeping, is either disruptive or they're sleeping too much. They have thoughts which are around, I'm a failure, or in an extreme case, I want to harm myself or I don't want to live anymore. That's obviously a very extreme case. Or if eating patterns can be disrupted as well. Either somebody's eating too much or not enough. So at that point, I would say to somebody, are you okay? How are you? But not, how are you? Just, hey, how are you? But how are you really? And that can be really powerful for people, just to say, well, I'm feeling down right now. And then for the other person to say, I'm sorry to hear about that.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
And then just to listen. And to listen with empathy and with sympathy. And to let the person talk. And to engage.
Yeah.
To keep the eye flow and to just have that sense of support.
Yeah. That your feelings are validated.
That's the word. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
Exactly, right. Yeah. And it's okay. It's okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's a great phrase.
Yeah.
I hope it translates well into Kurdish or Arabic.
Yeah.
It's okay. Because in this world, we're not always up. We're not always how we want to be.
Yeah.
And that's important.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. And thank you to you as well for talking about these issues as well.
Of course,
and you know, allowing these things to be talked about, because this is the way we break down stigma. So thank you.
Thank you for talking about it as well.